Hi y'all. In this video, we're going to go through 331, which is dividing polynomials. So the 2.0 level is doing all the other things, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and then 3.0 is dividing. So I have kind of some examples here. Basically, we're going to learn long division and something called synthetic division. Today, we're going to focus on long division, which is similar to just doing long division for actual constants, but we're going to be doing that for polynomials. So there's kind of a worked example here. There's also a written example here that you can take a look at, but I want to go through this one together. So the first thing that you are going to do is make sure that your examples are written in standard form. So both of these should be in standard form. And then if they're missing anything, you need to include it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write it kind of in this division setup. So whatever you're dividing by is going to go on the outside. So this one's going to go on the outside. And then whatever we are dividing is going to be on the inside. So this x minus 3 is in standard form. It's in order. That's great. And then underneath this division, we're going to do this one in order, x to the fourth minus 2x to the third. And then what should come next is an x squared, but it's not there. So anytime it's missing, you have to include it by putting like 0x squared. Then the next one would just be an x, which is there, and then your constant. So it's important that if anything's missing, you include it here. I do want to preface this by saying this example that I'm about to go through is probably the most difficult type of example you'll see. Everything that you'll do is a little bit simpler, but I wanted to show you the hardest one in the video so that you wouldn't get to the homework and feel like it was much harder, because this is the hardest, and then everything you'll do is just a little bit easier. So we have it written in standard form, and then essentially what you are going to do is you are going to divide each term. So what we're doing is I'm going to take this first part here, this x to the fourth, and I'm going to divide by this first part here, by x. So kind of off to the side, what I'm doing is x to the fourth divided by x, which gives me x to the third. So remember, dividing, you just subtract your exponents. So then when I do that I'm going to write whatever that thing is over here above my x to the thirds. And then I'm going to go ahead and take that value and multiply by my polynomial. So I'm going to do x to the third times x, which gives me x to the fourth, and x to the third times negative 3 to give me negative 3x to the third. So essentially what you're doing is you're trying to figure out, like, what would I need to multiply this first part by to get rid of this first term? So in this case, it's x to the third, we multiply, and then these should cancel. If they don't, then you made a mistake somewhere. So then what you're going to do is you're going to subtract those terms. So x to the fourth minus x to the fourth cancels. That should happen every time. And then negative 2 minus negative 3 is a positive 1. And then everything else you're just going to bring down. Then you're going to repeat that process. You're going to take this term and divide by your x again. So again, we're doing x to the third divided by x, which gives me x squared. So that's my next part, positive x squared. And I'm going to take that and multiply by my polynomial. So x squared times x gives me x to the third, which is good because those should match. And then x squared times negative 3 gives me minus 3x squared. Again, we are subtracting, so these will cancel. And then 0 minus negative 3 is a positive 3x squared. I bring these down. Repeat, so I'm going to take this and divide by my x. So I have 3x squared divided by x. Well, 3 divided by 1 is 3, and x squared divided by x is x. So that is my next term, positive 3x. So I take this and I multiply to get 3x squared, which is good. And then 3x times negative 3 gives me negative 9x. Subtract. 3 minus negative 9 is 12. Bring this down. And almost there, we got to do this last one. So 12x divided by x gives me 12. And the x's cancel each other. So that's my last part up here. And then I multiply that by my guys. So we have 12x minus 36. I'm going to subtract them. 1 minus negative 36 is 37. Now, once you run out of your x's, so like 37, we cannot divide by x anymore because 37 doesn't have an x. This is called your remainder. And you have to add that remainder to the end of your solution. So this is my answer with this as my remainder. So this is how we write it. This first part stays the same. So my answer, x to the third plus x squared plus 3x plus 12. And then the remainder you turn into a fraction. So since this is a positive 37, I'm going to do plus 37 on top. And on the bottom is what you are dividing by. So that x minus 3. And this is my solution. So again, this is the longest and the most difficult of the ones that we will do. But essentially what you're doing every time is you are figuring out what is this first term divided by this first term, and then multiply it out. What's this first term divided by this first term, and then multiply it out. And you just repeat until you can't do that anymore. Now there's one additional thing I want to show you, which is easier. So if everything on the top is divisible by the one piece on the bottom, then you can just divide much more simply. So this has only one term on bottom, and that tells you to just divide. So what that means is you're going to take each piece and you're going to divide it. So 8 divided by 2 gives me a 4. X to the 9th divided by x gives me x to the 8th. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. X to the 6th divided by x is x to the 5th. We're just taking one x away. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Take one x away. And negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. Take the x away. So if you can, and there's only one term, just go ahead and divide it like that so you can avoid having to do this long division. So what I'd like you to do is, if you struggled, you can rewatch the video or kind of read through this example, but I want you to try these practice problems, check the answer key for if you're doing it right. And then also, we're going to talk about synthetic division a little bit in the future, and it's much easier than long division. So you can see like an example right here. It has far less steps. It looks far less confusing, and you get the same answer. So if you felt a little confused by long division, I'd highly recommend watching this video to learn about synthetic division. And then you can do either one, either long division or synthetic division, anytime I ask you to divide. Once you are done with that, make sure that you do your exit ticket on Classroom, and that will finish up your lesson. Thanks, everyone.